Okay, so welcome everybody again. If you're new, we're planning on having these every Wednesday night, 9 o'clock Eastern time. So whatever time frame you're in, whatever time zone you're in. If you haven't yet joined on the CK app, there's a JavaScript Workshop squad. If you join there, I got the capacity bumped up to 1,000, and we're almost already at 200 people in there. So we got plenty of room if you want to join it. It's basically just somewhere where we can post information about these workshops each week, to where if anybody's in that squad, you'll be able to see the notifications and the messages and that input I was talking about earlier, stuff like that. So if you have not yet joined it, it's primarily like our little HQ bulletin board for the app, okay? JavaScript is with a capital J and a capital S, JavaScript Workshop. So it's an open invite on there. You just find it and join it. You don't have to wait to apply or anything like that. You're just in. So in the pinned comments there, you'll see the link for the calendar that should show all of the events. I'll also try to post them a couple days before each event so you can register, so you get the Zoom invite and the notification. And also, if you go in the spotlight, bottom left corner on the app where the little light bulb is, and it shows this week's events, if you scroll over to the right, you'll see upcoming events after it usually shows like the CEO workshop and that stuff. Keep scrolling to the right, and you'll see like Mia Peace has the one I think she's doing on Tuesday nights for HTML for like making your own website. If you guys haven't seen that, if you're interested. And other AMAs and different things where we have guests come in, former alumni that have gotten jobs after boot camps or graduated boot camps, people that are recruiters, hiring managers at different companies that Ruben and Timur and them have asked and got to come in. So check those out. Keep an eye on that. Also, the discussions tab on the app in the middle. You've got chat, you've got discussion, and then people. The discussions tab is really taken off. A lot of nice topics in there for beginners and people job searching, things like that. So, you know, take advantage of all the resources you're going to find in Career Karma, because that's what it's being built up for, right? So it's a good resource for that stuff.
Tuesday, excuse me. The Tuesday night webinar is excellent by Mia Peace. If you haven't dived into HTML or CSS, guys, do it. She is excellent.
Nice.
Jump in on it.
There you go. Yeah, so if you want to attend that, it's just like this. You can go in, you can find it, register. Under Spotlight on the app, you can find it. Otherwise, anybody want to say anything, introduce himself, any questions or anything before we get started?
What's the difference between JavaScript and Python?
Wow, that's next question. No, I'm just kidding.
Sorry.
No. I mean, they're two different languages. Python, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, Python is more of a like back-end language, where JavaScript front end but can be used for back end. Okay. Probably more machine learning type stuff with Python.
Probably more like scripting and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have barely dabbled in Python, but I mean, they are two completely different things, but they're both
artificial intelligence.
What's that, Rich?
AI, artificial intelligence,
okay.
Also with Python.
Yeah, I think don't people that
yeah,
like,
machine learning then.
Yeah, don't people that like mess around with Raspberry Pi and Arduinos and stuff like that usually use Python?
Yeah, that's Python.
Automation and stuff.
Okay, I'm kind of interested in doing that too, but I mean, I definitely want to learn JavaScript.
Well, JavaScript, a lot of times you're going to see that because, you know, with websites and, you know, JavaScript built into web browsers and things like that. So a lot of your web-based stuff is going to have JavaScript used for it, right?
Right.
I hate to say that might be a good thing, just to Google what's the difference between JavaScript and Python. You might get a better answer than that, unless somebody else is more educated on the two definitions of the two and want to give a good comparison.
Okay.
Janique. Janique?
Sorry.
That's it,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, anything else? If not, I'm gonna share my screen. We're just gonna.
I just have one thing. I think it's important that everybody mute their mic and unless they're speaking. Because the pictures, like I know that this is going on YouTube, and whenever somebody is speaking, their you know, if their mic is on, their photo kind of like pops up.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to stay muted unless you have a question or you have something to say.
Yep. I'll just mute them all, and then if at any point if someone wants to stop and ask something, by all means unmute your mic, ask a question, and that's fine. Don't feel like just because they're all muted that nobody's supposed to talk, right? This is a community event, right? This is not come listen to Craig talk all night, which tends to be how it happens. Sorry, but hey, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's up here, right? And I'm willing to fumble through some of this stuff just to get it done. So thank you, Sherry. Yeah, because sometimes people will come in and they don't realize that their mic's on and their TV's on or something, and like I said, that's being recorded. So, okay, we got 35 people. That's good. I mean, that's nice. Thanks everybody for being here. I'm going to I'm just going to start with this REPL I made earlier. We're just going to take a look at it. Guys, tell me if you can see it okay. Ternery Operators switch statements. You see it? Now that I muted everybody. Okay.
I see it.
Okay, thank you. It's like, everybody shut up, but I'm going to ask you questions. Right. Sorry. Okay, so we talked about Ternery Operators last week when we were, okay, so if you weren't here, we were going over FizzBuzz, and we were talking about, with FizzBuzz, if you go back and watch the video, uses a if-else statement where it goes through, it loops through an array of numbers, and depending on if the number is divisible by 3 or 5 or both, is what it outputs, either FizzBuzz or FizzBuzz. And it's a common coding challenge you might see like in a job interview or some variation of it. But we were talking about some of the other answers that were given on Code Wars, because if you solve a coding challenge on Code Wars, you'll see once you submit it, you can see other people's submissions of their solutions. And there was half a dozen, at least, different ways people had submitted them, and we were talking about those. So one of the options you have, instead of doing an if-else statement, is to do a ternary operator. And if you can see my screen, this is just one I threw together. I actually kind of stole it from one of my Udemy courses, Jonas, I think. So in this example, there's two variables here, first name and age. And in this line right here, 7, instead of doing an if-else statement to say if someone's age is greater than or less than, or excuse me, greater than or equal to 21, then, you know, on an if-else statement, if this, then do this, else if this, do this, else if this, do this, and then finally else for everything that's left, right? If you're familiar with if-else statements. So the ternary operator can be used in place of that. And in this example, it's basically saying if your age is greater than or equal to 21, we're going to console log that name, first name, which in this case is David, and it's going to concatenate a string, drinks beer, right? Otherwise, if it's not, it's going to do the same thing, but with drinks juice. Right now, the age is set to 16. So if I actually run this right now, there we go. So David drinks juice, right? If we were to change this, the variable, age variable, to 25, run it again, Dave drinks beer. So that depending on this variable that we're plugging in for age, if it's greater to or equal to 21, it'll decide which of these outcomes to use. Okay. And that is a ternary operator. We were talking about them last week. I just wanted to clarify what they were, why you would use them. In this case, you would use it in place of an if-else statement.
Okay. What is it called again?
A ternary operator. Ternary. I hope I'm saying that right. It's either ternary or ternary. I think it's ternary.
Okay. I see you. I got you.
Yeah. So, see, what I've noticed before is some of the tutorials out there, whether it be for like boot camp prep or just stuff you find online, as new versions of JavaScript are released and start being implemented, there's certain best practices that kind of start getting adopted. Like a lot of the stuff you'll do in prep work, you'll see var equals this, or var whatever equals whatever for variable. And like the best practices now, I believe, is to use let instead of var. So let first name equal David for just using a regular variable. And then you'll see where they use const. And a lot of that starts to get into using like scope. You'll have variables that are for the whole file or the whole program. And then you'll have variables that are just within a certain scope, like inside of a function, inside the blocks, where it applies to only everything inside of there. But that's stuff you'll learn as you get through more JavaScript. So if you see me use let, it's just in place of, like, sometimes you'll see var first name equals David. Okay.
Hey, Craig, can you explain that ternary? Is this a function, or what, can you get into the principle of it? Like actually, that's a great segue to the other thing I was going to show you guys, is how we can look up stuff. Because I realized last week we had a lot of different questions and things, and I tried to explain stuff and didn't know the best way to explain. And one of the best ways we can do that, and anybody can do it, is to look the stuff up. And I hate to say just Google it, but so I'm just going to Google what is a ternary operator, not to be confused with a ternary refrigerant blend, whatever that is. I'm guessing it's not got anything to do with JavaScript. So thank you, Google. Okay, so from MDN, conditional operator, in this case, I guess we're calling it a ternary operator, takes three operands: condition followed by a question mark, then an expression to execute if the condition is truthy, followed by a colon, and finally the expression to execute if it's falsy. So everything on the left side of the question mark, let's go back to it. So 21, greater than or equal to age, question mark, then do this. Or if not, falsy, whatever is after this colon. So if it's this, then do this. If else, do this. But it's done in one line instead of an if else statement. So we can go back to the definition if you want. So here's like an example. A condition followed by a question mark.
Operators frequently used as a shortcut for the if statement. Now, what I was going to talk about is MDN, Mozilla Developer Network. So you see like developer.mozilla.org. If you don't have this bookmarked, you should have it bookmarked. This is something you're going to want to go back to for reference, for all kinds of stuff. Trust me, it's just a very common source for resources. Okay. I'm telling you, a lot of these documentation pages and stuff for different languages, like earlier, somebody was asking, Shanique was asking about, Python and stuff too. Python, Ruby, React, any of these languages or frameworks or libraries will have documentation pages. You want to have those bookmarked to go back to. There's stuff you can refer to. There's I call it a treasure trove of information on those sites, especially like if you're learning React. I highly recommend you go to React's documentation page and go all the way through it. They created it. I mean, what a better resource to have for description of stuff and how to use stuff, and even tutorials and things like that. They have built right into their documentation. If you haven't been there, W3schools, tons of great stuff, references. JavaScript.
So are those two websites specific to JavaScript only?
No, like here, right here. See, can you guys still see my screen? Okay. It's W3schools that I'm on right now. Am I still sharing the same screen?
Yep.
Okay. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Hey, Kalila, I didn't see you come in. I'm sorry. I just said hi. So HTML, CSS, JavaScript, SQL, Python, PHP, Bootstrap, etc. And then there's another site, and I didn't check out to see if they are the same people that do them, but this W3 resource also is excellent. Front-end tutorials. Hey, now, put that red marker away. HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, backend, Python, PHP. There's database stuff over here, Postgres. And then down here, there's even, you can see where I clicked it before, there's even exercises you can go in here and you can practice like JavaScript basics, fundamentals, function, recursion, conditionals, arrays. There's almost like little mini coding challenges in here. Write a JavaScript function to check whether an input is an array or not. And you can click and see the solution. So if you get stuck on one and you want to see the answer so you can understand how you got stuck on it. So I highly recommend W3 resources to bookmark and W3schools to bookmark. So that is an example of a ternary operator. Okay. We were talking about them last week, is why I'm even showing this. Then this basically replaces doing this down here. Okay. So instead of writing all this, you can do it all in one line. And then okay. This is called a switch statement. So what's cool about this is, so you can assign a variable. In this case, it's just var. I mean, this could be, again, this could be let. So if you're letting job equal teacher, right now it's assigned to teacher. If you set up a switch statement, switch job, and then inside your curly brackets, in this case of it being teacher, it's going to console log whatever we tell it here. So here it's going to use the variable first name, which is still from up here. Guess we should free that so we can use it. Whoops. So it's going to console log first name. It's going to concatenate that with this string, teaches kids how to code. And then it's going to do a line break because it has to know to stop. If this is true, it's going to output this to the terminal and it's going to stop. If not, it's going to go to the next case or the next case. So like right now, if we ran that, David teaches kids how to code because we've set job to teacher, right? So if we change teacher to designer and run it, Dave designs websites. So this is another way that you can designate, depending on what is assigned to that variable, which case is going to be the outcome. And in this outcome, we're just asking to console log the name that was provided with whatever string was provided here. Then if this is not teacher, driver, or designer, so say he's a waiter, almost kind of like your else. Oop, that broke. I know why. Look at me. There we go. I left an E on console.log down here. I caught it. So Dave does something else because that's what we told it. Anything else that's left by default, if it doesn't, if it's not one of these three cases, then it's going to go by default console log the name provided plus the string. And then you could have more cases, right? You could have case cop, case fireman, whatever, and go on and on and on, and specify which string to add to that name for each one. So that is a switch. So some of y'all that have been doing JavaScript a little longer, I'm guessing this is nothing new to you. The Ternery Operators, the cases, but for people that are brand new and trying to get example for JavaScript, brand new to it, and just starting off, loops and arrays and variables and things like that. Is this new for anybody? Is anybody looking at this and being like, oh, cool, I didn't know about using switch or the ternary? I lost my chat.
Always good to review.
Okay.
I knew about them, but I think having them explained this way and like looking at it and having it explained kind of like really solidifies what I know. So agreed, piggyback on that. It's good to review. But for me, it's more, it really opened my mind up to exactly what the switching case does. I could use the switching case, but the way you explained it was beautiful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. And like I said, we had talked about some of this last week. So that's part of why I wanted to bring it up, just to kind of, it took a week, but to save, I hate to leave unanswered questions. If, I'm the kind of person, if I don't know, I want to try to find out. But when you're in a environment like this, what I should have, hindsight now, what I should have done is we should have just Googled it last week, right, when we were talking about it. Kalela was right on with a lot of the explanation of some of the stuff that last week we weren't sure on. But I think even some of the stuff was, Kalela can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was even something we talked about last week that was something was new for her too, I think. And I had missed some of the notes earlier because they were on the screen. So Chris was saying Ternery operator is basically shorthand for an if statement. Okay, cool. Docs are awesome. Highly recommended. Okay, W3 resource. Yeah, Michael, I'm surprised I've never seen that before, that site. But if you go in there, if you guys get a chance, honestly, bookmark it, go back in when you have time and really go into some of that stuff. There's some pretty neat tutorials, and most of them have like a code example where you can actually run it and like sandbox with it a little bit too, and shows like an explanation. I thought it was pretty handful, especially pretty handy, especially if you're new and learning, right? Okay, Jonique's still fresh, basically starting off basic. Okay, a lot of people say start off HTML and CSS and then probably JavaScript, and I know a lot of these programs will throw you right into like JavaScript or Python. You know, I don't think it would hurt to go on Free Code Camp and go through HTML and CSS before you progress on anything else. I personally think if you have a mild understanding of HTML and CSS before you get into actually real languages, I think especially if you're a visual learner. Yeah, hearing stuff multiple times. And part of the reason why I'm reading this is because people that see this recorded can't see the chat, and if people ask questions or say stuff in chat, they can't see it. So, yeah. Otherwise, now back to the other. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. Back to the other. Somebody asked me earlier in the JavaScript squad about if we could look at a problem they were having in training and in something. Let me see if that person's here. I can't remember who it was. Or if you're here, speak up. Give me a second.
Are you referring to me?
No, I think it was, hang on, Ashley. It was Tony. Somebody named Tony.
Oh,
Tony.
okay. Okay.
Tony Nguyen. Tony, are you here? Tony? But he posted it in the squad, and it's on my phone. I can't see it. Even with glasses, there's no way I'm going to see that. So I was hoping he was in here. We could look at whatever it is. So there was discussion last week about like us having a specific like coding challenge or something that I could post so you guys could look at it before we come in here. And when I was trying to figure out what to go over this week, I was looking at maybe finding a coding challenge that included some of these things we just talked about, and I'm sure there's a million of them out there that do. To be honest, I had a crap load of stuff going on this weekend. I had to take my dog to the vet, and there was a local meetup in town I had to go to Monday. So I didn't do my due diligence to track down the perfect coding challenge for us to talk about. But with that said, especially some of y'all that have more JavaScript experience, if you have a specific thing that we can go over. I know Lauren had sent me a whole bunch of Lauren Collins had sent me a bunch of stuff on Discord about different things to, giving me ideas and stuff, but trying to keep this toward the basic side because of new people, but I don't want people that are experienced to not want to participate either because it's beneath them. You know what I'm saying? So if you have anything in mind you'd like to go over, or we could talk about even now, people have questions, or you have something you're working on right now that you want to talk about, because we have, almost 30 people in here right now. Be a really good time to ask the questions and bring it up. If it's specific things, if it's something on a Flatiron Bootcamp tutorial or pre-course, or Lambda coding challenges. You have the 3 coding challenges you have to pass for the Lambda assessment, or some of y'all that are going to be doing the tech interview live at Flatiron for in-person. So does anybody have anything particular they're stuck on right now? They'd like to go over, talk about? This would be a really good time. I was trying to leave enough free time in here that we could do that. Let me check chat. Sorry.
Excuse me, Craig. I have a question.
Okay.
I have no idea how selectors work. How do they work again?
How do they work again? Give me 1 second. We'll look it up.
Okay.
Let me answer Janique real quick. So
Okay.
yes. Janique, if you go to Code Wars, it's a website. You can choose which language you want to do coding challenges in. JavaScript is one of them. We were doing those last week. And whiteboarding, when you hear about whiteboarding in an interview, it's literally a whiteboard, and they will ask you to replicate some kind of like a function or something that will give you a problem, and they want you to whiteboard, like write it on the board how you would process or solve or write the code or implement it to fix the problem they're giving you. I I think I caught that. So sorry. I try to keep an eye on chat in case somebody asks something. I don't see it. Give me a few minutes. Okay. So Ashley, I'm sorry. You asked about what again? Let me look it up. Did I freeze up again?
No, you're good.
Ashley, what did you want help on? Does anybody remember what she said? I know I repeated it and I already forgot what she said.
I think it was selectors.
Selectors. Okay. Okay. So you're talking about, okay, selectors. So when you're trying to tie JavaScript into like CSS or HTML, right? Like when you're trying to import. Right. Well, let's take a look at it. Is anybody familiar enough with them that they want to try to explain them or talk about them? Any volunteers?
Okay.
I can give a guess.
Okay.
Okay. Selectors, I'm guessing, well, since you said tying JavaScript into like HTML and CSS, I'm guessing it's something that like references a tag, like a P tag or like a header tag that like selects something, like, and then you're using your JavaScript to interact with it to like do something with whatever element has that specific tag or selector.
Looks like it. It's interesting. So yeah, selects a P element inside of a div P. Ashley, what are you working on, or what is the actual like? I'm guessing there was some sort of resource you had to go through.
About the one with the asterisk, and yeah, it's definitely the asterisk part. Yeah, that. Yeah, right there.
This thing.
Yes.
Okay. I don't recall doing this before. I know if what's that?
You haven't done this before?
I know I've gone over selectors, but for some reason I don't recall using JavaScript to pinpoint specific things in the CSS or HTML.
Oh, okay.
I mean, everything I've kind of done has been like on click, like gets, like getting input for someone to input something. Things like that is all I've actually tangled with. But
yes,
anybody else that's familiar with it and has worked on them, you know.
So if she's Ashley, or if
yeah,
you're
I'm here.
Yeah. So my experience with the I guess the asterisk, like I use that specifically in CSS. So yeah, so you know if you're styling like a paragraph, like styling all paragraphs, I think you do P and then you do like an open and a close bracket and put whatever you want. So usually when people are designing like websites, they start with the like asterisk tag, right? To give like general like types for whatever they're like putting on a page or constructing. Like let's say you're doing typography, like I want all the fonts to be this. Now you can override that like down the line, but whenever you're typing something, it'll default to that if you don't have a specific, you know, font that you want to do. So I think that's how that's used. And I think what we're looking at right now is how JavaScript, or the last page that Craig was on, was how JavaScript can access those selectors, whether it's the P tag or a paragraph within a div or a specific class or an ID that you give an element, so that it can do something like hide it, or when you click it, something happens.
Oh, cool.
I kind of, I think what threw me off is like CSS selectors. I understand that, like you'll use a dot for classes, and I think like a hashtag for, wait a minute. dot for classes and a hashtag for IDs, right? When you're trying to
Hashtag for IDs.
Yeah, so when you're trying to select for CSS to select an element to do whatever you want to do with it with CSS, I guess what threw me off is I wasn't aware that there was selectors in JavaScript that also could select or point to specific elements. I guess that's the part I've never worked on before. Sorry, that's what kind of threw me off. I apologize. But that's Ashley, that's something in JavaScript you're currently working on, or you've been working on?
Yeah, I was wondering because I was stuck on a prep course lab, and it was talking about CSS selectors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just
okay.
immediately thought JavaScript and was like looking up JavaScript selectors. I was like, sounds familiar. Sorry.
Okay.
This is cool. This is why we're doing this, right? Because again, if we don't know it, then somebody else might know, and we can talk about it and maybe learn something, right? So, okay.
Oh wow. Okay, that is pretty good. Yes.
Leslie, the selectors are just working with the IDs or classes that you give into an item. Yeah. So like I know with CSS, if you're going to select a certain div class that you created and you called it div whatever, then you're going to select that before you apply the CSS to it so that it changes the styling of that section based on, what background color, text color, padding, all that stuff, right? Atia, I hope I'm not saying it wrong. Just put in a link for another site that has some info on CSS selectors also. dev.to, neutrino. Okay, Michael. In JavaScript, when you want to manipulate the DOM, you select the tag. If it's an ID or class or query, you have a way that you can select it and manipulate it. Okay, cool. So that would be kind of getting into the conversation of manipulating DOM in JavaScript, which is something that I was kind of hoping we could have a class on sometime, maybe either with someone that's more versed in it, or I'd probably have a lot of homework to do to go over that. But I know that's something I've seen people ask that we could go over. I'm trying not to jump too far from the basics because there will be people coming into these each week that are beginners. And I'm trying to juggle and figure out how do we help the newbies that are brand new, but still you guys get something out of it too. I don't know, maybe we could start splitting the session and do something pretty basic at the beginning and then go into something more advanced the second half. I mean, what do you guys think? Any input on that?
Or we can like start with something and then break it down all the way. So like if we were to go to constructors and array lists and then people are like, oh my God, what's that? Then you can go down into like,
That's exactly what I would sound like.
Exactly. What is this? Then you can go into like what it's used for and why like an array list might be used instead of an array, and break it down that way. In fact, if we have time, like that would be a good thing to work on.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. I'm it's like have these once a week. I don't mind if they go more than an hour, like hour and a half, even if people are getting something and people are interacting with it. Like I said, I'm just the bus driver here, folks. You know what I'm saying? I'm here to help make this happen, but other input from other people that want to discuss other things or even go over stuff, please let me know. You could take the mic over and even screen share and go over stuff if you want, upcoming sessions, things like that. So like I said, we're all here to learn something from it, but like I said, I did not graduate from JavaScript University, and there's no magic pill to come in here for 1 hour a week and all of a sudden I know JavaScript, right? It's a learning process. And if I know what people are stuck on or what you need help on, I can either look at it myself or get someone else involved to help us to break it down and go over it. So, does anybody else have something that they are currently working on or stuck on that we could take a look at or discuss? 27 people. I mean, we were gonna talk about the difference between a for loop and a while loop. I know we talked about that last week. I thought maybe we could go over that. We were talking about using a for loop, and some people were saying, well, couldn't you use a while loop for this when we were talking about FizzBuzz?
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody want to try at that definition of what the difference is between the two? Anybody want to jump up on the mic and throw it out there? So for loop, when you know how many times you want to run through a loop, and while loop, when you're not really sure how many times, and you're wanting it to run through until it finds what you're looking for. Does that sound like a fair explanation of the differences? There may be times when you want to use the while loop, but when you know that you're going through an array that has 10 things, and you know you're going to go through the entire length of the array, then a for loop should be fine, right? But if you're going to search an array that's got 1,000 things, but you only want it to go till you find something, right?
Actually, can you put it up on the screen?
Sure. Let me find it.
Yeah. And maybe we can go into like a for each loops too.
Yeah, and that's something else I found earlier that was pretty interesting. Is there are more than just for loops and while loops. There's a do. There's I'll just find it. Hang on a second. I can remember where I found it from. I think it was MDN.
Yeah, someone said while loop versus a do while.
It's still better than my if loop from last week, right? So I'm over here like making up stuff. I should work for MDN. It's like, hey, I got a new loop for us. It's called the if loop. Give me a second here. I found the do while statement creates a loop. Sorry.
I think the do while is useful because sometimes you don't know if your loop is going to actually compute or actually like work. Let's say you have a variable age equals 15, but your while loop is while age is greater than 16. Because age is 15, while will never go. Whereas if you do a do while, I think whatever you put in the do will run once, but then it won't continue doing whatever.
I was going to say, isn't one of the loops used for when you have like, was it properties of an object, or like you have different objects and then you'll have different properties of the object and you want it to actually loop through a specific object's properties, right? So if you had a bunch of names in an array, each name had a list of properties like age, gender, height.
Yeah. So right? That's like a for in loop, I think, what you're talking about.
Yeah, here we go. Am I sharing my screen? Can you guys see this? So here we go. So different kind of loops. So a for loop, a for in, which loops through the properties. For of loops through the values of an iterable object. While loop loops through a block of code while a specified condition is true. And then do while also loops through a block of code while a specified condition is true. So the for loop, for, and then a statement, block to be executed. So for like index starting at 0, when it's as long as it's less than 5, you're going to add each time through the loop. And basically output the string, the number is whatever, and then break for the next one. So that would continue on until you were no longer less than 5, right? So, again, folks, I'm on W3schools right now looking this up. So if you don't use these resources to look this stuff up, all right, Chris. Thanks for coming, man. If he's already gone, I'm sorry I missed him saying goodbye. Oh, okay. Thanks. See you later. So again, you know, when you're working on like your coding challenges or even your schoolwork, right? If you're in a boot camp and you're trying to get lessons to pass or whatever, yeah, you would think that Flatiron or Thinkful, whoever, is giving you enough resources to know before you do the lab, to know enough stuff to do it. Don't think everything you've got is on that page. Okay. Trust me. You want to be able to look up stuff. And sometimes I just Google like the most layman way, like, how do you make a loop that does this? And you'll find something sometimes close enough to get you to a resource close enough to see like, oh crap, that's what I'm doing wrong. I'm forgetting this one thing, right? But it's the process of learning how to learn. I know you're going to hear people say that, but it's really true. This is not like, well, I shouldn't say I haven't been in school for a long time. I don't know some of y'all that have been in college or high school within the last few years, how they really teach people to troubleshoot and find stuff. Okay. Janique, we'll see you later. Thanks for coming. But back to this again. So a for in loop loops through the property. So this is kind of neat, right? So this is called, what is this called? When you have you create, like this is a variable that equals several different elements, but they all have their own, these semicolons, that these are properties for those objects in the array, right? Anybody? And then this looks like it's setting up a what's that?
Key and value.
Key value pairs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then it's setting up an empty string, starting off with a variable X, and then having this for loop, X in person, and this is person. So that's going to basically go through each value, right? It's going to start off with an empty string, and then it's going to add each person and their value. So that should input out John Doe 25 at the end, right? Yep, there it is right there. Cool. Yay, look, we're learning. Okay. For of loop. And I'm not sure some of these, how often you're going to run into these are I guess it would be good to know what they do, right? Just in case you ran into an instance where you needed them. And the using map, and we talked about that, I think it was last week also. That would probably be something we could go over one of these weeks too. Part of it, those two guys, I guess, what I'm alluding to here is I need a little help too, right? I need to know what you guys want to see and what we can work on. If you're brand new to JavaScript, obviously you have nothing to ask because you don't even know what to ask yet. I get that, but some of you folks that are working on prep courses and pre-courses, and you've struggled with just the comprehension of certain things that are supposed to be simple or basic, definitely, like I said, ask or reach out or see if we can go over them or talk about them. Right? Or does anyone have something they're currently working on right now in a prep course that they would like to ask about? Like they're stuck on, or they just worked on and they don't truly understand it and they want to get past it, but they're afraid to skip it. Right?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any good elephant jokes? Something.
I think
An elephant walks in a bar and he's trying to learn JavaScript. No? Go ahead, Kalila. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
Tough crowd. Okay.
I think I want to know more about objects, you know, and I want to know about arrays within arrays. And
like
I want
nested arrays?
Yeah. And I want to know about like accessing things because, push, pop, but there's slice, there's splice. And even though like I'm saying them, I know what they are, just being able to see them.
Yeah.
So it can like really make an indent in my brain. So I can really stress that importance in terms of like receiving data and not manipulating it and like knowing the difference between like why you wouldn't do that or why you wouldn't. But outside of that little blurb, I think I'm really interested in objects and like doing stuff with them, like defining it and then creating something.
I was gonna say, because we could almost make a whole evening out of just talking about objects and properties, right? Because like, as far as I understand, when you create an object, you do it like you would a variable, but instead of it equaling a specific thing, like in this case here, inside the curly brackets, you would list a list of the properties for that object. So like here, person would be your object, and then everything inside the curly bracket would be your properties, and then with the key value pair, your property, you'd have the key, right? And then the value. So first name would be basically, it's like a variable. It's like a variable inside of a variable, right? So like your object would be like your daddy variable, and then everything inside would be like children. I don't know if that's the best way to explain it, or if that's what the hereditary stuff is really what it is.
Yeah. So and then like constructors and how that all connects and things like that. I think I'm really looking forward to saying what it can do, not just having the logic of it all. Like maybe we explain a concept and then like do something with that concept.
Yeah. And then I think what kind of feeding off of that, you would probably get into like, is it considered state, like .this? Like when you have an instance? Because I know in Ruby it's not. It's this in JavaScript, right? In Ruby, it's called crap. I'm drawing a blank now because I've been bouncing back and forth between Ruby and JavaScript. But when you're dealing with state, it's the current instance of what you're working on with that inside of that.
So object. By this, do you mean, well, or maybe we can like pull this up in a replit. If we're creating an object, right? If we could just like go ahead and create a constructor, like a random thing. I don't know if you want to pull it up.
I don't know if I know how to create a constructor.
I got one for you. I'm just trying to figure out like your reference to this.
Yeah. Where did my replit go? Did I swallow it? Did I close it by accident? Let me find it. Sorry. This is the pain of doing this live too, right? So I have to make my mistakes. I can bring up replit and just I can just make a new one if you tell me what you want in it.
Yeah.
JavaScript, right?
Yeah.
What are we doing? A constructor?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So before we go and just continue this Craig Kalila paring down constructor, we should probably explain what a constructor is. My best way or example is like array, right? So I don't know if you want to type this, I don't know. But
sure.
Let's say you create an array and you said, let my array equals an empty array. Like that is an array, right? But array how is an array an array? How does an array function? You know, like, what is this? Actually, an array, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to do this like layman's terms, like very basic understanding of this, is an object of a class called array, right? And within that class or constructor or whatever, there's a bunch of rules of how an array can be manipulated or how it can function and things like that. So when you hear constructor, think like a rule book for every single object that is like that. I don't know if there's a better way to do it, or if we should just create it.
For every single object that is, well, see, in object-oriented program, almost everything is an object, right? So every element inside of your array, whether it's a string or an integer or whatever's in there, is an object, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think like a school, like or Harry Potter, Gryffindor, right? So Gryffindor has like personality traits and rules for all their students to follow, right? And every single student that like comes from Gryffindor follows those rules. So that's kind of like what a constructor or class is to an object. So like, I guess let's create one.
Okay. Well, okay, so I'm looking here. Let me show you this real quick. So this is on W3. Let's talk about object constructors. But see, this example, to me, this looks just like what we were just talking about with a with person being the object and these being the
this. Yeah, I was trying to get to that. Yeah,
the state.
I was wondering if that's what you're talking about.
Okay.
So let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's just do it.
All right, everybody.
Okay. All right.
Everybody's involved now. I can hear them all. They're all waiting. So are we ditching this let my array thing, empty array?
Yeah. Just get rid of it. It's gone.
Get out of here.
Gone. Okay. What spies? Let's just do that. The spy class.
Just spy?
Yeah, const spy equals function.
Oh, you're doing it that way. Okay.
Yeah.
Const
spy. Up.
Does that need to be an uppercase spy?
Yes.
All right.
Because usually constructors and classes are uppercase for people to know that. Equals function. Let's create some parameters. Code name, a weapon, and stealth. Yeah. But let's just do C, W, and S so we can like notify the difference between, you know.
Just this?
Yeah, because it's gonna create a separate point. That's also important. You're gonna open that up.
Open
the function, because we're defining the function.
Oh, you want curly brackets?
Yeah.
Okay,
and then this dot code name equals C.
I got you now. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, and let's just stop right here and explain what just happened. So code name is what is it? It's the key or the property of our spy class, right? So every spy that comes from the spy class should have a code name, right? And we're equaling it to C. Why are we doing that? Well, later on when we create a spy, like a spy object, we're saying that it has to be defined, like it has to be passed its code name, which is C, and that's going to be passed into the code name key that defines the spy, right? And we're saying dot this. I don't know if you have a way to explain dot that or this dot.
That is boy. That is how do you explain that?
Like array dot length, right? So, or like my array. So if you create an array or something like that. So like my array dot length, my array dot length. Sorry. So length is like that method.
It's a method. Yep.
Yeah, that we're attaching to the my array like object that we would create or something like that. So the dot this holds that place for any future spy we define later. right? So let's say we create a spy, we give its code name and it's Sapphire, but then later down the road, we want to change it, then we can do whatever that spy object was, .codename, and change it and access that key. But right now we're just defining the class or the constructor. So it's kind of holding this like a spot for any of those objects that will eventually be brought up later.
Of that.
Yeah.
This is in place of like whatever you're gonna call it.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's my understanding, unless if you have a different.
I Googled it up because I don't know how to explain it either, but it says its keyword refers to an object, the object which is executing the current bit of JavaScript code.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, every JavaScript function while executing has a reference to its current execution context called this.
Mm-hmm.
Execution context means here is how the function is called.
Okay. Yeah.
So, okay.
Sure. Let's go.
Sounds awesome.
Let's go with that.
Okay.
Like I'll add something to that just a little
Go
bit.
ahead.
Please.
Color.
Yeah.
So that, because that's a bunch of gibberish that makes sense for the grand scheme of this, but by the way,
we need layman's terms here.
Yeah.
Yes.
The people want to know. The people want the truth.
An easier way to think of it in this, with what we're doing here, is with classes, and so, or objects, I guess. So without getting too specific, objects here is referring to the current instance. So in typical object-oriented design, you would have classes, which are like blueprints. And then when you want to stamp out a particular instance of that blueprint, you would have, that would be called the instance. JavaScript actually doesn't have classes, but it acts like it has classes. I'll just put it that way. And in this case, or when you create objects this way, this is referring to an instance that you would later define. So this, which would be the constructor, or what's initially executed when you create a new object here, or a new instance of this, these would be the default values that would be given to any stamped out new object from this blueprint, from the SPY blueprint.
Yes. Makes sense in my brain.
I'm trying to. I remember in Ruby, there's the instance, when you're creating an instance, it's not this, it's called self dot, what, who said that? Oh, Paul, right? Oh, come on, Paul, you act like you know Ruby or something. Come on. It's not like you use it at work every day. Okay. Sorry. Yes, dot self. And that's me trying to juggle comprehending Ruby and then JavaScript and the similarities, but yet what is not the same, like some of the syntax, right? You got to try to remember that. So you don't sit there and run your code and wonder why your Ruby's not working because you use like this on everything instead of self.
You may see self if you start looking at JavaScript, especially if you're looking at wild, like code that's out in the wild. You will see self in JavaScript. It's when
is it a keyword?
It's not a keyword, but it's a what do I want to call it? Like a accepted accepted way of doing things. So if you need to maintain what this is after you've passed it off, this would then change because you're in a different execution context. If we go back to that original definition you wrote, but if you need to know more or less what was where that was delegated from, the common way or the accepted way of doing that is you create a variable called self, you assign it to this, and then you can access what this used to be inside a new execution context. It can get, I didn't want to go down that path too far, but just to let you know that if you are looking at code, you may see self in JavaScript.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, what I was kind of saying earlier is like, I honestly think that we could do this every Wednesday night for the next 5 years and talk about something different in JavaScript and probably not specifically talk about the same thing, right? I mean, there's so many different avenues we could go to and discuss things. Where do we draw the boundaries of how deep to get into this stuff, because we don't want to lose people. I mean, we went from like 50 people to 15 people. So obviously somewhere, there's people that are like, I'm going to watch this later, or, okay, that's enough for me. I think that's more than further along than I'm at right now, whatever. Right. So how do we?
Maybe a goal.
A goal?
Yeah. So like in the beginning when there was a problem, like there doesn't have to be like a set defined problem somewhere else. But if people know where we're going, then whether or not they have the experience or not, they would at least want to know.
That's kind of why I was thinking with the coding challenge, like here's the problem. You have a chance to look at it early. Don't worry, we're going to solve it. And then we're going to talk about why it's working, and also talk about other ways you could have done it. And that was kind of my idea originally, to keep people involved, give them an opportunity to look at it ahead of time. But I don't know.
Like you had it, you just since you said you got caught up, you weren't able to like put it out there so they can kind of be ready.
Yeah, well, see, ideally, I was thinking, well, last week we talked about this and this and this, but we never really clarified what the things were, right? Like ternaries and stuff like that. And then I'm over there like making up stuff, if loops, come on. And I'm thinking, how can we talk about stuff that's going to benefit new people, but also benefit everybody else? So yeah, how about for next week, we just go back to a coding challenge, and then we can just delve, work it out, talk about it and delve off of it, and then just talk about other stuff. And if we get to the point where people aren't getting anything from it and they start leaving, then that's fine. It's recorded. You can always watch it later. But at least we started off with something to where people can see what, like she said, what our goal is, right? Yeah. Like the goal is to solve this challenge. It's asking us to do this. And this is still a work in progress, folks. This was not like, there's not some team in the next room that came up with I talked to my dog about it. He was like, yeah, whatever. I'm going to be sleeping the whole time back here on the floor. So he don't care. I just trying to be helpful and give us all a reason once a week to meet together and learn. Right. And that's why I'm like, anybody speak up, because when there's 37 people in here and 3 people are doing all the talking, I don't know the other people are you learning anything from it? Are you just like, what am I doing here? I want it to be helpful, and I'm just trying to feel it out to see how it's going to be helpful. Right.
Yeah. Can I add something?
Sure.
I will add something. What Kalila did with the const spy, with this code that she just wrote and explaining it as she wrote it, that was very helpful. So, because not only did you kind of write it, and it was kind of foreign to me, but I understood everything that she said and everything that's going on with this. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, the newbies, probably won't, like I've been in and out of JavaScript for a minute, but I don't think in code yet. So having it explained the way Kalila did was a beautiful way to do it. So I think that there are variations that you can actually apply in the teaching method throughout the course of these workshops. Maybe one is a coding challenge. Maybe another one you're gonna, okay, today we're gonna focus on objects and this aspect of objects. Now we're going to work on for loops, and instead of doing one for loop, do several for loops and explain how those for loops work and why they do. If your if statements, do an if statement, then do several if statements and explain them, and then have people repeat back what was done. They're workshops, but they're also kind of like classes at the same time. So it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to necessarily be one format. It could be like, okay, this week we're going to do this, and we're going to discuss this way. And then the next week, hey, we're going to do it a little bit different. This week is going to be a project. you know, or you know, a coding challenge. Here's the coding challenge. Look it up. You know, try work it out on your own. Remember those for loops we used to do? Here's a for loop challenge.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's see what you come up with. And you may be repeating things. You may be repeating the for loop. You may be repeating the, you know, the while, whatever, you know. But I think it's not so much like losing people, because we're instructed from day one to be immersed in your code, be immersed in coding.
Mm-hmm.
So be immersed in it. So even if you don't know it, you're going to come across it eventually. And I think the newbies, you know, people who are kind of new to JavaScript or new to coding need to know, look, you may not understand it, and that's okay, but pay attention. If you don't know something, write it down, look it up on W3C, look it up on MDN, you know, take notes, write it down, look it up if you don't get it, because what we're supposed to do is get immersed in this anyway. So so it's about the approach. And I think you guys are doing well, but I think if you're looking for structure and format, you can go anywhere with this, if you want. But
the difference is though is I feel like if I was a complete advanced JavaScript user, right, and to be able to take a particular thing and break it down and things like that, and that's part of the issue with me on deciding what to bring to the table for us to talk about is I am not the authority on JavaScript, and I'm still learning.
Comes in.
Yeah. Right. No, she's obviously saved my tail a few times already. But that's what I guess that's why I'm asking these questions, because I guess I want to see how you guys feel about it. If you're in the trenches and you're learning this stuff, what are you stuck on? What do you want to see? If you don't know any better because you're brand new to it, then you're going to probably just show up and watch whatever we do and try to take whatever you can away from it, right? But if you guys have specific things that you know, like she was talking about, you know, constructors. So let's talk about constructors. Because I don't have the answers for my own question. That's why I asked. But I just want to make sure we're doing something, and we don't have to do the same format every week. Like I said, it's a work in progress, but kind of need some input of, okay, guys, what do you want to be doing? You know, I want people to come back to these and learn from them and not be like, yeah, I tried a couple of those. Those weren't helpful. See ya. You know what I mean? So yes, thank you, Sherry. Good input. So talking stuff out, breaking it down, repetition, even if it's the same, similar stuff that we've done another time.
Yeah.
It's good. I don't know if doing a for loop and then doing another for loop and doing another for loop, I think we could work on the same for loop and just change up some stuff, add some things, whatever, right? We could just keep kind of rebuilding the same for loop, trying some stuff.
So if I were to like pick into my mind and think about like what I struggled with or was interested in when I started coding, and also like what questions I have now as still a general new person to coding, I think one is concept, right? So we can go over like, what is this and how does this work? And then another point is okay, now I know what this is. Now I know how it works, but so what? What do I do with it? So like, I think if you could create something, if anyone in the world could create something that kind of tackles that two aspects of explaining what something is, but also doing something with it. So people could be like, oh, this is the magic of code beyond just figuring it out and something computing at the end. I think that would be really helpful.
I think, was this you and I that were having this conversation last week or something? I had done that a couple months ago. I did a workshop, but it was like trying to help people set up their VS Code with do a little bit of JavaScript. And I did a tiny little HTML with a CSS, HTML file with a CSS file with a JavaScript file, just to show an on-click. Like when you do an on-click and it changes something, here's what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I just thought, you know, maybe do something like that, but with JavaScript to where it's got a little bit of, you know, gets to get input and like have a little HTML where it's got a button and you could put in something, maybe even like a little miniature JavaScript calculator to where, okay, guys, here's our screen. Look right here. You put in a first number. Now it asks you for a second number. Now you click this button and it gives you back an output of adding two things or subtracting two things or whatever. And then you could flip over to the CSS and show why the screen looks like it does. And then slide over to the file, the JS JavaScript file, and show the mechanics with the functionality behind the scenes so people could kind of link those mentally together. Like, okay, again, the alternator here, build an alternator. Okay, cool. I've never driven a car or seen a car before. But with that scenario, I felt like I can see it. I can see the style sheets to know why it looks the way it does. And then now I can look at the mechanics behind the scenes to see the processing and the computing that's going on behind the scenes and why JavaScript does what it does and how to create something, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe that would be a good way as a visual way to show like, hey guys, I've got this JavaScript function set up to run a loop, and it's going to take everything we input and do whatever to it, and then go back to the HTML and be like, okay, here's our screen. It's asking us to input our favorite color. Now it's asking us to input our name and et cetera. And almost like a little Build-A-Bear, but for a little mini JavaScript. I don't know, what would that be called? Like a web app or something? I don't know what it would be called. Front end. With a JavaScript. I don't know. Anybody?
Yeah. Well, I second that. Especially if you could like create something where it's made with things that are simple.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing that we haven't talked about yet. Like if you just did something with a while loop, but you ended up creating something you can interact with.
Sure. Like, so if it asks you for your name, but you put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it would come back with a little alert or something saying, oh, sorry, needs to be letters only.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And that's kind of thing. Cause when I'm not doing this, it's like what I'm doing for either school or my own stuff. It's like, I'm over here trying to figure out like how to create a Rails app, running a Rails server, and then like tying in a React front end and all this different stuff. So it's kind of like, I thought about even doing something like a React or a Vue, like actually building a React app, because it's not really that hard. You have to unpack some stuff to get it there to where you see on screen, like, look, you're running on a local host. I just didn't know if that would be too much of a shot over the heads of the people that are just starting out with JavaScript to even touch React or see what React is. It's like, I just feel like it's such a shot over the bow of hitting target for what we were even trying to accomplish too. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I have a different like view on that. I feel like
throw them in the deep end, let them swim.
Throw them in the deep end and show them that it's not that deep, right? Because I think a lot of click-offs or a lot of, I want to get into coding, but I haven't started, typing or looking into it yet, is that whole, it's too deep for me. I'll never understand it.
Or the people that just go to the pool and they just walk around the pool and keep dipping their toe in the water and they never really get in either. It's like I know people that have been messing around with self-taught for like 2 years and they still can't even make a website, right? It's like, anyway, well, I'll tell you what.
Well, it looks like I'm in the deep end.
Are you in the deep end or you jumped in the deep end?
I jumped in the deep end.
Sometimes baptism by fire is the quickest way to learn, sometimes getting challenged with something, maybe we could even do that. Like, hey guys, next week you show up, everybody try to do this. And then when people show up, like, okay, who did it? Let's take a look at them and give people a little challenge to work on,
That would be good.
I've enjoyed it though. I'm keeping up as much as I can. So,
are you? Is it Raymond?
Ramon,
I'm sorry. Are you new to all of this, like coding in general, or just the JavaScript part, or what?
All of it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
Woo, congrats.
Yeah, I mean,
Thank you.
he stayed here this long. Thanks. One of the 15 people left. Awesome. Yay.
Well, I started about 2
15
weeks ago, and yeah, I started about 2 weeks ago, and it's really not as hard as people make it out to be. They make it out to be like it's the Matrix, just something so complicated.
Well, it's all, I think it's all relative to what your brain associates it with. Like you move to a new city, right? Or you move to a new area in the city, and it's like, what did I take a left? Do I take a left here? How do I get on the highway from here? Whatever. 6 months later, you're like, whoop, got to go down the road, take a right, jump on the highway, and you get to work, and you're like, I was on cruise control. I don't remember getting here, right? Because habitual things become almost subliminal, right? Subconscious. And I think with coding, I think the more repetition and the more you do certain staple things, you know you're going to make a function. Well, guess what? You just, boom, you slap down the framework of it, and you're sitting ready to start putting code inside of that function block between the curly brackets, right? Habit and going over, and I've said this before, like when people are doing tutorials and they're watching somebody do something on like a YouTube video, go to Replit or go to a CodePen or something and type out the same thing they're typing, right? What's it going to hurt? Nobody can see you doing it. If you run it and it fails because you have a syntax error, who cares? But you're getting in the practice of knowing that, like JavaScript, you're going to throw that semicolon on, or you're going to capitalize when you're using, when you're setting a variable that's an object, right? That repetition, but yeah, stick with it. And thank you guys for sticking around this long. I know we went like an hour and a half again, but I feel like we covered some stuff though.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? I mean, I feel like we went over quite a few different things, right?
Can we make an object? Can we make a spy object?
Yes.
Finish that.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's go, Craig. I got the object for you. I got it for you.
Okay.
Let's go. Okay. Const.
Where am I at? After the outside?
Yeah. Yes. Right. So we've already made the constructor. Const. Craig the spy.
Oh, wait. This is capital Craig the spy.
Let's start with lower. Let's start with lower.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if I was supposed to.
Craig the spy.
Craig the spy. Yes.
Yeah, because now we're making a spy object equals new spy.
Better than being an old spy.
New space spy, right? Because we're making a new spy object. We've defined the school of spies, right? We're making a new spy. Yes. Okay. So parentheses. Okay. What's your code name? The Waddler.
Yeah. Make sure you explain that those are parameters too.
Yes. The Waddler.
Craig the Waddler wadding.
The Waddler.
Sure.
Yes.
The Waddler.
We need that in quotes. Let's do quotes, right? Because they're parameters.
The Waddler.
Right?
Excuse me. Yes, absolutely.
Yes, the Waddler.
I can capitalize it then.
Yes, you can.
In quotes.
Waddler. Okay, and your weapon, right, is code. Also
code. Yes.
This is also a string. Yes.
It's right now it's a blunt object. It's not a deadly weapon. My coding is not very sharp. So
are you stealthy? Well, then you have to be stealthy. So do true.
True. Oh,
yes.
This is just true.
Yes, this is just true. So what did we just do? All right, we created a new spy, right? That's like literally const Craig the spy. It seems like a variable. It's an object equals new spy, right? And we're putting in our parameters of a code name, a weapon, and a stealth. How do we know to do this? Well, let's look at the definition of constructor spy, right? Whenever you're creating a new spy object, you have to define the code name, the weapon, the stealth. So then it could be attached to the .this, whatever, right?
Okay.
I want you to log Craig the spy, and then I want you to redefine, let's see, Craig the spy's code name if you want, and then log that. So then you can kind of see how the this dot something works.
What do you want me to do?
So, okay, in the parentheses, Craig the spy has to exist. So if you can.
Yeah, comes.log parentheses, then Craig the spy.
Yeah. Just print that out.
Do I need anything else in here?
No.
Just straight up that?
Yeah, straight up that. I kind of want to see what it prints out, if it does anything. See, it printed you out. Said you're a spy. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. And let's do on a different line, Craig the spy dot code name, and then you can change it to whatever you want. Or whatever, something else. If you want to change your stealth.
I'm just doing what you're telling me to do. Craig the spy dot.
Stealth. And then I'm thinking equal false. Not sure if this is how you do this. And then like print or not print. I'm thinking a different
console
codes.
log.
Console log Craig the spy again. See if it changes it.
Oh, I'm breaking so many coding rules here by clicking pasting to copy paste, but whatever.
Okay, let's see what happens. Yeah. Okay. So also, Paul, I don't know if this is how I should understand this, but that's how my mind kind of, I guess, absorbed the this dot situation, right? Because I was thinking the this is now Craig the spy and dot stealth is how I can like access that. I don't know if that's what you were saying before.
Yep.
But yeah, okay. So in my mind, like whenever I'm doing a this, I'm associating the this to the closest thing that the this is to, which is the defined spy function or defined spy constructor. And then once we make an object from the spy constructor or the school, right? We make a spy, then what's replacing the this dot is the spy we make, and then we can access the method we've defined within the spy constructor or school. So objects. Now I just want to do something fancy with them.
To be clear, the new spy is the instance, right? And the regular object is the constructor, right?
Well, you created a new instance of spy, and in this instance, you change stealth. No, you created the first one, and stealth, the third, the false, truth or false was true. And then you console.logged it. And then when you did Craig the spy.stealth equals false, you changed one of the attributes of that instance of the spy by changing it to false, right? The stealth. But is it still the same instance? You just changed one of the attributes or one of the oh gosh, one of the values, or what is that called inside of the parentheses with Wadler code and true?
Parameter.
Yeah, parameter.
So you changed it from true to false. So, but was it still the same instance of the spy you created? Right? You created a new instance of a spy, and then you gave it its attributes, the code name, the weapon, and the stealth true or false Boolean. So when you changed line 10, all you did was change one of the attributes. You didn't actually change the instance, right?
Yeah, because I think we're accessing the same spy, the same spy.
Because it's the same
object.
spy. No, the spy didn't change, just his Boolean of his stealth.
Yeah.
Yeah, values, yeah, or a value, yeah.
Because if we created another new spy, because this new spy, this new instance is called Craig the spy. So if we made another one called Paul the spy, that would be another instance of the spy object, but not the same instance. It'd be another one. It's like it's like a spy factory, right? Every time we create another instance of spy, it's another copy of that object, but not the same instance of the object. Right?
Makes sense to me.
So for clarification, is the constructor everything in the curly brackets?
Yes.
Okay.
Atalia, sorry, you couldn't see the screen? Or you still can't?
Now, I think like you had it up too high or something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I have the chat on another window, so I hadn't looked over there in a while. I apologize if you were asking for a little bit.
It's okay. I can see
it.
Craig the Waddler always eventually checks chat, just so you
know. To bring things full circle, can you use the for in loop to access the keys and print them out like separately?
When you ask, can I do it? Do you mean, can I type it while you tell me how to do it? Absolutely.
Oh, good God. I haven't touched a for in forever. Okay. Let's just go. Okay. Okay. So okay, I'm gonna do this a little backwards. We're just gonna type for in the parentheses and we'll define that somehow.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then type key space in the parentheses, and then
do you need a comma?
Still within the parentheses, do type obj for object, I guess.
Do you want key comma n?
No. Key space n space object. This is me without looking at the literature and knowing exactly what I'm doing. Okay. All right, closing parentheses and then curly brackets. Okay, and then I want for you to console.log the key.
That?
Yeah, and then I want you to do another console.log. Where it does a string that says value, colon space.
Inside the string?
Yeah. And then plus outside the string. I don't know if this is supposed to be object.key or, yeah, I'm gonna do object.key. Okay, now because this is not a function, I'm not sure if this is correct. And is that N-I-N or is that a literal N? I can't see.
Yeah, but you said N. I thought you said the letter N. Do you want an N?
No. I-N, like, yeah, I-N. Sorry.
Got it. That makes more sense because it lit up as a keyword.
Yeah,
like,
so,
okay, popped in fresh.
This object thing isn't defined. So if we can look at a for-in literature real quick to make sure we're doing, because I kind of want to put Craig the spy for the object. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens.
Google that on screen, or you want to?
Yeah.
What do you want me to Google again?
JavaScript for-in loop.
It's a variable that you create, that variable in, and then the name of the object. Tell you what, I don't know if you guys can see. Can you see both screens at the same time? Or do I have to?
I did before, now it's gone.
Whoops.
I can see them both.
You can see both of them?
Okay, so
let me try this real quick. Can you see them both now?
I think so. Yeah. So instead of object, probably put Craig the spy.
.key.
We're gonna try to do exactly what we see with this literature. Maybe Craig the spy and then brackets key.
And then brackets key.
Yeah.
Square brackets?
Yeah, square brackets.
Okay. Inside of the parentheses,
Mm-hmm.
just like that guy. Okay.
And let's see what happens. See what goes wrong.
So run it.
Yeah.
You break it, you buy it. Okay, wait.
Broke it. Okay. So how
You
do
need
we...
to put it in objects as well with a for loop. Let's say
Oh,
keys
yeah.
for correct this
Yeah.
by.
Yeah. Object. All objects should be correct this by. I'm not sure if that is the only issue, but all objects should be correct this by.
So this here should be Craig the Spy?
Yes. We'll see what happens. And we're gonna do a let key. Yeah.
Well, this is cool though.
It's working. It's working. Okay.
Code name value Waddler.
Yes.
Weapon
All right, good
value.
deal. High five.
Oh.
Virtual high fives.
Hey.
Woot.
Now, you could change that in your string for value, right? I mean, you could actually take it out and it just console log Craig the Spy key, which would just output the values without labeling them a value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jeez, I feel a very, very like an object now. Oh, wait a minute. A very valued object. Yes. All those years of locksmithing, I finally can be a spy. So proud of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was a locksmith for like 12 years. Yay me. Cool. Awesome. So you got to do a for loop in front of everybody and it worked.
Okay. Yay.
Round of applause. Thank you. Golf clap for everybody. Nice job. Too bad so many people left to get to see it.
Oh, it's okay. We can just do it again.
That's right. And again, and again, and again, until everyone here
knows what a foreign is.
Drill.
Yeah.
Drill it. You go to work tomorrow and you're just like, I don't know, Craig the Spy, coffee. I need coffee. Okay. All right. Anything else before you guys want to call it a night here? Anything else before we finish? Comments, questions, ideas for next time? Anything?
More stuff like this.
What about Team Lauren? There's 2 Laurens in here. They know each other.
More stuff like this, I piggyback on that one.
Okay. So why don't we just kind of condense it all? Why don't we start off with some kind of code challenge that we can tell people about ahead of time? Doesn't have to be something crazy. We'll solve it, talk about it, break it down, and then we'll just kind of whatever we break it down to, whatever pieces we break it down into, then we can discuss them further and kind of just freestyle from there. What do you think?
Yeah, I like that. I even have a mini project.
But this way people would know kind of what to expect, that we're at least going to work on it. Mm-hmm. And I guess we would kind of be dividing it up into maybe 2 sections. Like, okay, this is what we talked about, we were going to work on, and then take the feedback from whatever we do to figure out the second half of what we're going to go over and talk about based on interest and questions and people's questions like, well, how did you do that? What is that called? Or, those typical questions we usually get, right?
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, number guesser or word guesser are fun little programs that use most of what we have been covering. Okay. So you mean like a little concentration game, Paul? It's got like a hidden number and you have to match the 2
No,
spots.
not concentration. Just like the computer chooses a random number. So there's a couple different ways that I like these as fun little projects because you can they can be very easy, or you can add additional features to them that incorporate more and more stuff. So the number guesser's the easier of the 2 because you can say, you can have it prompt, or you can give it like choose a number randomly between such and such a range. The computer will choose it, and then you just give it inputs It's like a little console thing, and then it
And
tells
it's
you
higher or lower.
higher or lower. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
I think I've seen this. Yeah.
add on like, make sure that the person only gets like 5 attempts and things like that.
Got it.
The word guesser is takes it a step further because you basically build a hangman.
Little hangman. Yeah.
Oh, I like that one.
It keeps track of the letters that have already been guessed, and so it'll tell you if you already guessed that. You can limit the attempts that somebody has. They have to guess the word in so many tries, things like that.
Okay.
And they're really simple, but like I said, you can add on, and it's something that you can do it procedurally, or if you wanted to start and write it using objects, you could do that as well. So there can be a variety of implementations for it.
So what, Sherry, you volunteered to make one of those for next week?
I didn't say that.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't put anybody on the spot except for Kalila. She's going to make one next week. So
I already have one. Boom.
You made one already? Nice.
Already, like it's not too fancy, but I challenged myself to like take something I did in a different language and then to do it in JavaScript. So I was like, oh, that would be
I mean,
cool.
you don't have to. You can answer this later, but if you would be interested in presenting that sometime, if not next week, the week after, and maybe kind of breaking it down and showing how you, I hate to say strip it down and then build it back out to show them how to get there.
Yeah.
If you want to.
I would probably take it even farther, like building the concept and then going from concept to code to it works.
Do you want to show that next week, or do you want to wait till like the week after, give you more time to mess with it?
Maybe the week after. I have to check my schedule.
Have your people call our people.
Oh, I wish I had people, but okay, no.
She's got got to make more spies first between now and then.
I'll see.
Why don't we just so for next week, I will find another coding challenge, something that hopefully has got some neat stuff to go over, right? To kind of break the ice for us to have to talk about certain things. And then hopefully by the weekend, I'll throw it into the squad chat so you guys see what it is. That'll give you a few days to look at it before next week. And then if you want to start tinkering around with your little, I don't know if it's a word problem or number problem guesser, maybe tentatively planning on for the next week. And then if you don't get around to it, then we can always put it off until you have time to do it.
Yeah.
If you want to do it. If you change your mind, just tell me and we'll scrap it. But I think Paul's right. That would be a pretty neat thing to be able to show somebody not only the thought process behind it, but also the output. Like, look, you can actually interact with this thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about like looping things. And I mean, console.log is fine to see something output, at least in the console, but definitely if you have something like that, even if it's like a command line type thing or whatever, right? As long as you're seeing that.
It's
not like you have to make a web page for it and HTML.
No,
but that would be a nice follow-up exercise.
Yeah, to build it up.
I like what he said. I like. Yeah. Take that, Mia, and make your own website. We're making our own video games. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's a choices game too. It's a choice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll have a bunch of Harry Potter stuff in it. Great. I'm just kidding.
But before we move on, like, does anyone have any questions? I'm not sure if we actually like explained the for-in loop or like why we did it or why it works.
I don't know. I was kind of wrapping it up earlier, and I said, "Does anybody have questions?" And everybody, I think they either left or they.
Okay. All right. Just wanted to.
I'm going to stop sharing here, by the way.
Clear my conscience. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Speak now or forever hold your peace, or leave a thumbs down and a nasty comment on the YouTube channel. And we'll check that later. I'm just kidding. Joking. Got jokes. Okay. So, all right, everybody. Lauren is going and confused. Why are you confused, Lauren? Anything specifically?
It's over my head.
Nah. You just gotta get there. that stuff that's not super deep JavaScript stuff. It's just, you probably maybe haven't got there yet. But
it's like React. It was like a whole lot of code and a whole lot of letters and dots and stuff. And I was just like, my head exploded.
yeah. Well, I mean, to say how to eat elephant one bite at a time, it's all this stuff to learn it. You gotta chip away at it and just try to keep learning something. That's, again, part of why we're doing these, right? Just so we're constantly challenging ourselves to get better.
Yeah,
right?
I just started learning JavaScript, but I'm at the intro part where it talks about JavaScript. So I haven't really touched in it yet. So,
Congrats.
thank you.
Well,
I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's a certain amount they call like vanilla JavaScript. So it's like the basic fundamentals of JavaScript. And then you get into more advanced JavaScript stuff. And I'm not talking about libraries and frameworks like React or something. I'm talking about like the weird parts and all that.
Yeah, the only part I had done so far is I'm in like the Lambda, and they just like told you about like the languages you can learn, and you'll hear about like React, Sass, and a couple other ones that you're gonna hear, but they're not gonna really like teach you, but you may hear about them and stuff.
Yeah. React is something you would I would say you'd want to learn JavaScript first, at least the basics of JavaScript, and then get into React, because that's a library for JavaScript, right? And then Sass is a compiler for CSS, to where you can, I don't know how to describe it, I guess pre-compile a lot of your CSS stuff to use, like if you're going to use stuff over and over. Like if you had a theme for a website and you want to change the main colors, I think there's like, gosh, I can't remember what they're called now, but you could go in very easily and just change out a couple of the, it's almost like you're setting a variable for a color. I don't know how to describe it. It's been too long. I'm sorry. But yeah, Sass is like a CSS compiler that you would get into if you got into more CSS stuff.
But I know one big thing that they were talking about when they started the intro to JavaScript was if you get into making your website, you have to make it user friendly, because you have people out here in the world that are visually impaired or hearing impaired, and you have to make sure that your website caters to them.
Yeah, I think they call it
to help them out, because
accessibility, right?
Yeah, I think that's what they said, because some people have like color issues, like they're colorblind, or they have, where they can't see or they can't like read or something like that. And you have to like make sure you cater your website to everybody, because not everybody, is a normal, is like me or you. And they were saying that. So I thought that was kind of cool, because a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, a lot of, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and maybe somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think sometimes when you apply or interview for jobs, I think depending on what you'd be working on, I think there's part of their code challenge or part of their interview process too is to see how well you're able to handle like accessibility stuff. Like if you're doing web design, I think sometimes. I don't know. Awesome. Well, Lauren, keep it up. I know you've been sick and stuff and other stuff going on. You wrecked your car, and Murphy's Law is like trying to keep you down, and you just keep bouncing back. So keep it up.
Well, thank you so much. I thought it was kind of cool though in my coding prep that I learned about something that I also learned about when I went to my first meetup. So that made me feel good.
Nice.
Because I learned about the blind, what do they call it? If somebody's colorblind and if somebody can't see and hear and stuff. I learned that in the my first meetup I went to at C-Spire here in Mississippi. So it's awesome.
Meetups are good. I'm telling you, if you're not going to them, if you can squeeze out an hour a month or something, go to them. If nothing else, just meeting other people that are in the genre, right?
Yeah.
You never know who you're
And
going to meet.
they're nationwide, you guys. So you can go on meetup.com or the Meetup app and just put your city and state in, and it'll tell you everything that's going on in your city or state. If you're new to Career Karma, just check it out and, you know, look up and see what's going on. It's really fun. And they have not meetups for code. They have meetups for coding. I mean, anything. And even if you want to just do a meetup for like learning about how to cook food, they have a meetup for that. It's awesome.
Yeah, I look under tech. I think it's where I found the one I go to. Like I said, you know, you can make your own meetup too. Like if you live in a city and you can't seem to find a meetup that maybe you want one that's on Saturday nights, it's the only night you can do it. I mean, you can always start your own. You have to figure out where to meet people. You know, if you meet at a you'll find a sandwich shop or coffee shop that'll allow you to be in there, but you can always make your own. You don't have to just go to the ones in there too. That's how they all start. Cool. Okay. Anything else before we go? Everybody, thank you so much. See you next week. Paul, thanks for showing up again. Anybody got anything else? If not, we'll wrap it up. Cool. It only took 2 hours. So I went from scrambling to try to think like, oh man, it's only been 50 minutes and I'm already covered everything I wanted to talk about. It's like, anybody else? So we definitely found more to talk about, and this is recorded. So if you, like I said, if you like missed the beginning or got here late or something, you should be able to find it on the YouTube channel. They should go up on the YouTube channel a little quicker now because we sorted it out where they were getting recorded to and how to get them and get them to the right people to get on the Career Karma's YouTube channel. So otherwise, thanks everybody for coming out, and we'll see you next week. And shoot me a message with if you had any ideas or anything we talked about and you just didn't want to, get on the mic or say it in the room, just hit me up on the app or find me and let me know. Okay.
Awesome.
Good night.
Night.